Okay. Welcome to the Morning After Group of New Jersey. I now give you Ian L. to share his experience, strength, and hope with the group.
Thank you. Thank you all, and welcome to all the newcomers and beginners. And I'd like to start off with a prayer, just a small set-aside prayer too, which is helpful for me as well. So, God, please enable me to set aside everything I think I know for an open mind and a new experience, and help me see the truth of the grave nature of my alcoholism. Amen. And I like to say this prayer to remain teachable and for you all as well, that I may say something that doesn't align with your current belief systems, but it may be my experience. And my experience may differ from yours, and it's okay. It doesn't mean I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. We can both be right, we can both be wrong. It really doesn't matter. But at the end, I want to be clear, because in my early days of coming around, I had this attitude that was really belligerent in recovery, and if somebody said something I didn't believe, I would just shut it off. I couldn't hear what they were saying, and my mind was thinking 100 things, and everything but what was being discussed, and not just from a speaker, from the other participants as well. So, there's a couple things that just hit me this morning, a beginner's meeting. And what's a beginner? And what's the difference between a beginner and a newcomer? And I was just kind of praying on it and thinking, and just from my own experience, I was a newcomer for a little bit, but I was a beginner for a long time, and maybe I'm still a beginner. And I look at a beginner, a newcomer, somebody that's new that comes into something, and a beginner as somebody that's just hasn't really started a process or a path. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the Big Book, because that's my experience and how I went through a 12-step process that made a big transformation in my life. And it was important, and it's important in my story, because when I came into AA, and my sobriety date's November 6, 2006, I came around for about a year. That's when I really committed to do something. And I came in, I had been around a little before that and had a lot of circumstances around, but I never really wanted to be there. But when I came in sometime in late 2006, I really was ready to change. But what happened is I never changed. The only thing that changed was my external routines. I didn't drink for a year, so I was told I was a winner. But if you ask the people closest to me, they would tell you that they were better off when I was drinking. I was miserable. I wasn't living a life that I would think would be something that would happen if I didn't drink. I was actually living a life very similar to the life I was living when I was drinking, except I wasn't drunk. Maybe I wasn't disappearing on blackouts, but I was disappearing in other ways. I wasn't present. I wasn't part of the family structure. And so it wasn't until about, and I don't know the exact time frame, I used to say 18 months, but I don't know if it was 12 months, if it was 14 months, but it was definitely in that time frame that I thought I went into the basement of my house. I was living home. The first 6 months of my journey, I was still under restraining order. I wasn't living home, but I eventually came back home. And I was living at the house. I went down one day and I decided that I knew I couldn't drink. That was clear. And anybody that's counting days and that's relapsed and stuff could probably identify with this. I knew I couldn't, but I also knew I would. Like, I knew that I was going to do it. I just didn't know when, but it was coming. And I knew the circumstances that would happen if I picked up. I'd go back to jail. I would devastate the family structure, my kids. It would been over at work. But you get to a place, you get to a line where the pain's so great it doesn't matter what the consequences are. And all you need to do is quiet the pain. Get rid of the pain, the voices, the talking, the isolation, the separation. And so I had been in a meeting in northern Jersey one time where I saw a guy that tried to stick a shotgun in his mouth and kill himself. And the recoil, he didn't kill himself, but he did a lot of damage to himself. So I knew that if I stuck the shotgun in my mouth, I'd probably be the same way. So I actually sawed the shotgun off. So it was close enough that I could put it in my mouth. And even to this day, I can remember the taste of the barrel on my tongue, kind of like when you eat some food and you get tinfoil in your mouth. And that the difference between the food and the tinfoil. And I sat there crying, like yelling at myself to pull the trigger to end it. I'm better off gone than to do one more time what I had done 100 times over. And so at the end of the night, I found myself I must have fell asleep, and clearly I never pulled the trigger because I'm here. But I would say it was the first real shift of a relationship with God. The grace of God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I ended up that day in a meeting that I never went to. And when I walked in, the guy, I still speak to him. He's been a beacon in my life. He saw me walk in and he asked me if it was my first day. And if you look at anybody suffering from alcoholism and the pain and the fear and the anxiety and the look on their face riddled with fear and stress, and you could see the pain. And I was so upset and said I've been around for whatever, a year and a half. And he grabbed me and told me he knows what I'm feeling like. He's been there. And almost everybody you're going to meet in this process has been in that same place at some point. And he asked me a profound question. And he asked me where was I with God in the 12 steps. And I couldn't answer him. And he knew I couldn't answer him. So he told me to sit down and do the best I could in this meeting. And he ended up staying with me for about 6 hours after that meeting till way into the early stages of the night, in the morning, 2, 3 in the morning, talking to me. And then eventually I drove home. He gave me a big book of basic text, and he highlighted a couple of things, and he asked me to call him the next morning, and the next morning, and the next morning. He never became my sponsor. He always told me that to pray for a teacher, and he would send me different places, and I got connected with some great people. And a few months later, he sent me to a meeting to hear someone speak, and I beelined, and that guy became my sponsor, and he still sponsors me this day, like 18 years later almost. Anyway, that started a journey when I met my sponsor, Ron, and he asked me a couple profound questions. He asked, and I bring these questions up because it's a beginner's meeting, and I'm around AA, but I'm loitering. I don't even know. I'm raising my hand saying I'm an alcoholic. And he asked me if I knew what it meant to be an alcoholic. If I actually knew what it meant. And the truth was I gave him a couple opinions or my thoughts, but I didn't know deep inside what it meant. I didn't understand that our basic text, the Big Book, spends half of the recovery process just having us have considerations in our own experience to identify and just to ask yourself whether you're an alcoholic, and whether you suffer from alcoholism, and, for the basic respect of this meeting, I'm going to keep my focus to alcohol, but it doesn't matter what process or substance you suffer from, and it's all going to tie in, and so I ask considerations when I speak a lot because I'm not here to drunk a lot or to preach or to tell you. I'm here to share my experience on my journey to not feeling better, but to actually getting better, to having a shift in this process from using AA as a self-help tool to a help others tool. And I pray and hope that everybody gets there. So if you're brand new, like someone's here for the first day, or you're here for 30 years, it really doesn't matter because I'm going to ask you the same consideration. The first page of the Big Book has a statement in it that says that this book is the story of how thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And that word recovered triggers a lot. I don't care what you think it is. I'm just going to ask you a simple consideration. Are you here today in this meeting and are you still suffering? Because if you're suffering, then maybe with 0 days or 30 or 40 or 50 years, if you're here and you're still suffering, I identify the pain, the same pain I had when I stuck the shotgun in my mouth. If you're not enjoying the gifts of life, if life is still a heavy going to you, be true to yourself. Be open. Don't let the linear time define who you are. Don't take the years that you've been around Alcoholics Anonymous, because sometimes the most important person that comes into these rooms is the first day person like we have today. But sometimes it's someone with decades of time dying inside, and the ego is so strong that they can't raise their hands and say that they're so close to picking up. Their knuckles are whiter than snow, and they can't hang on anymore and going through life like that. And so Ron explained to me the real dilemma that, and I put this in a place of any process or substance, whatever you suffer from the symptom problem of what brings you into a 12-step program. When I start using or doing it, can I control the stop? Can I control how much I do and how long I do it for? Because that's a very simple question. And then the second half of it is, when I do stop, can I stay stopped? Because that's a real dilemma. If I'm really suffering from any process or substance addiction, and I can't control what I do. And when I eventually stop, whether it's because I got stopped or something created the stop, and I can't stay stopped, I'm in a vicious cycle. And the book talks about it in a lot of different places. It says that, that you're suffering from an illness that only a spiritual experience can conquer. The young woman that read How It Works outlined in the ABCs that no human power can relieve it. And, so that's a place of hopelessness. That if I am doing something that I can't stop and I can't stay stopped, what do I do? And, and that's part of our first step, is first understanding the first half of the first step, the powerlessness over a process or a substance, and then understanding. And Ron explained this to me. We took a lot of time. He wanted to make sure I was clear, because he outlined something for me and told me I won't understand it right now, but I will one day, that as I go through the 12-step process, that I'm going to balk at certain places if I truly don't understand the first step, that I'm on a path to die. And if I don't want to die, I should go through this process. And what ended up happening was I asked him a point-blank question: did you suffer from what you just explained from? Because I understand that, and I've been fighting this battle internally for a long time, and I don't know how much longer I can battle it, and I don't know how much longer I can hang on. And he showed me something in the big book, in the doctor's opinion, which was profound, and it said that basically men and women drink because they like the effects produced. But he showed me a few lines down that said that we're restless, irritable, and discontented unless we can get the sense of ease and comfort. So when I get into that pain so long, so deep, I'm going to get to a place where the book talks about, and there's not a lot of time to really explain this. When I'm working with somebody and dealing with this or doing a workshop, I can spend a year on what I'm going to try and compress into 25 or 30 minutes. But there's an internal condition within me that generates so much pain, so much anxiety. And until that's dealt with, I'll be fighting the external relief for the rest of my life. And the book says it all the way out on page 64. It tells me that when the spiritual maladies overcome, we'll straighten out mentally and physically. So I didn't understand that for decades almost. Even after Ron and after going through the steps, probably about 6 or 7 years, I thought I had to treat the mental obsession. But it really came to me later on that through a man who some of you know, who passed away in 2016, really showed me that until I addressed the internal issues, my external circumstances will never change. And I will continue to do stuff that's harmful until I go back to what really fixes it. And so it's actually a reverse cycle, that we come into the 12-step process suffering from alcohol addiction or other processes or substances, to whatever the fellowship is. But the truth is that I need to treat the restless, irritable, and discontent or that's going to trigger a condition for me to think that no matter how bad the pain is, it doesn't matter. I can't stay in it any longer. And then I start the cycle. And the big book even says that knowing that I can't do it again is pointless, and it's just an academic statement. Because if I could, I would. I ask you all on here to consider this. If you could not pick up when you first came in, then why did you come in? You just wouldn't have. But something was going on that you couldn't stay stopped. And we get in here and we get the grace of God, and forever how long that is. For some people that are fast chronic relapsers, it could be 30 minutes. And for some people, the grace of God could be 30 years. But sooner or later, if I don't treat the spiritual malady, I'm going to set up a condition for the insanity to return. And I'm not talking about external insanities of what happens from the outside. I'm talking the internal insanity that tells me that it'll be different this time, or that I just need to calm the pain. And what ends up happening for someone like me that's been around for a while is I trade the insanity of that first drink or other processors or substances for the insanity that I can run my life again. That I can step in the show and run the show, and how it shows up. And some people have been through some other workshops and stuff, and some other people we know. And, how I see it is it looks like third alternatives. See, I come from a belief system that I don't raise my hand in a 12-step meeting and say, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict, I'm a sex addict, clutter, I'm food, I'm a bunch of other things. No, for me, I'm truly an alcoholic. In another fellowship, I'll raise my hand and say, I'm truly a drug addict. But the rest of the stuff are third alternatives. And so what's that look like? There are other things. People say trading addictions. There are other ways in my life that I'm trying to restore myself to sanity. I'm trying to fix the internal problem, sneaking around other processes and substances, hiding it from other people, and showing up in life looking like I'm doing okay. So ask yourself this consideration right now. What are you doing today that you don't want to be doing and you keep doing it and you can't stop? Is it overeating? Is it vaping? Is it smoking cigarettes? Is it overworking, overexercising, body dysmorphia? Is it gambling? Is it sexting? Is it pornography on the internet? What are you doing today that you want to stop doing? And this is not for the brand new person. This is for the person who, my first consideration, is still around here, still suffering, being around for a long time, right? What am I doing today that I don't want to do that I'm still doing? And I'm dishonest with myself and others around it. Like I'm hiding it from my wife or my friends or other people, and I'm not honest about it. That stuff circles around and it'll come back, and it's human power. And the book says we have two alternatives: to live on a spiritual basis or die an alcoholic death. Well, those other things, these third alternatives, are the alcoholic death in disguise. And why am I talking about it? Because that's the stuff that's going to come back into my life. At some point, it's not going to work anymore. How many Air Jordans can I buy before it doesn't? They're not that good. They're not that cool anymore. So I go to how many pieces of pizza and donuts and chocolate and ice cream, and then that's not working. And then I go into the over-exercising and overworking. How much money do I need? You know what I've learned in this process? I have a disease of want. And when I get it, it's not good enough. It's the restless, irritable, and discontent. I get there. I have it. I look back a year ago, and I wanted to live somewhere. And once I'm living there, I don't like it. It's really not working. You know, what in your life isn't working after you strive? You know, it's all self-help stuff that I trade the insanity for instead of just letting God run my life. And I'm trying to tone this to a place, but at the end of the day, what this process is about getting access to power greater than me that will restore me to sanity and put me in a place where I wouldn't do it even if I could. Everything in my life. How do I get to a place that I wouldn't do it even if I could? And when I'm there, I can tell you around most of the stuff in my life, that's a quiet mind. I can tell you today, honestly, and this is not like blowing smoke on some speaker. I don't really like to speak anymore. I like to listen. If Andy called me this week and said, would you speak? I would have said no, but I committed to this a long time ago. And I've made a personal decision to not do this, to be a listener for a couple of years, not a speaker. But part of the process that I go through and over the course of my time is to how can I do this a little bit better? How can I get better at this? And then I realize I can't. You know, I can't get any better at it. I can't do it any better. You can't be right or wrong when you're seeking. It's all about this access to this power and having this relationship with a God, a power greater than yourself. And if you really believe in it, and, you know, I get people that call me all the time, Ian, I want to go back through the steps again. Can you take me? I'm looking for a new experience. What's wrong with the experience you had? What happened to the experience if you've had an experience? You know, are you helping other people? Not just inside the rooms, outside the rooms. You know, the book talks about homes, occupations, and affairs. Is your life built around 12-step rooms? That's an affair. What's happening in your home? People on this meeting know. Like, I see some faces. I didn't even tell anybody I was speaking. I don't even know how they found out. But I guess Andy sends flyers out and people see stuff. But if you really want to know how I'm doing today, call my wife Danielle. Call my office. Show up where I go food shopping. See if I put the shopping cart away or I just empty the groceries in my trunk and leave it there to bang into someone else's car, right? See how I show up in life. Don't ask me how I'm doing. Ask the people around me. And if you can't do that, I beg you to latch on to someone and find out where you're still suffering. Because sooner or later, I hear stories, Mary Jane or Bill or Sue or John or whatever. Can you believe they went out? 27 years. They stopped going to meetings. What happened long before they stopped going to meetings? They stopped relying on a higher power. Self-will run riot. Devastation. Ask the people around them, and people don't want to be around them. Ask yourself, the people that are relapsing, the newcomer coming in here with a day, or someone said that they're back again, what's going on in your life that's causing you so much pain that you don't want to deal with or address? Because it's going to come back. Coming to these meetings are great, but they're human power. Going back through the steps 10 or 15 times, human power. We go through the steps to clear away the stuff so that I can have an experience so I can share it with you. The steps are not a self-help process. I can't get any closer to God than I am right this moment. I could go through the steps 100 times, and if God's deep down inside of me, how am I getting any closer to God? If God's everything, how am I getting any closer to everything? So I ask you, are you all in? Anybody play poker here? Texas Hold'em. I'm not a gambler or a card player, but I see it on TV when those men and women are at the table and they go all in. They push their chips all into the middle of the table. There's none in their back pocket. There's none stuck to the side. There's no reservations, lurking notions. They're all in, you know? And all in means all in. It's all the steps. It's not 11 steps and then it's a self-help program. It's, am I committing myself to helping other people, to guide people? People tell me I'm not good enough to take someone through the steps. Well, the only way you're going to get good is to teach. You want to learn, teach. You want a new experience, teach. Ebby said to Bill that if you don't teach people this, you'll die. If you don't carry out, I don't even want to paraphrase it. I used to know it by heart, the statement. He promised that when these things were done, he'd enter into a new relationship with his creator and he'd have an element of a way of living which answered all my problems. Which part of all your problems isn't all? You know, which problems do you have aren't part of all? And then he said that if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his life through his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he wouldn't survive. So if you're here and you want to perfect and enlarge your spiritual life, look at where you're doing self-sacrifice. You know, not going through the steps, helping someone through the steps, putting your shopping cart away, opening the door for people. You know, Roland Hazard said Carl Jung told Roland Hazard in the meeting, if you don't change, you won't stay. So I ask you, are you ready to change? Are you ready to commit to a 12-step process and not just feel better, but get better? And I'll circle all the way around, right back to the first step. Are you ready to concede to your innermost self that you're an alcoholic? Because that's a big commitment. It's not hiding behind a room. I'm an alcoholic. I can't do anything about that. I can't change that. But I don't have to live without active alcoholism. I don't have to live in the external and internal trauma of it. I can get better from that and live a life that I feel good. You know, I would lie to say here that this is like, I'm like this every day. Today I woke up, I felt great. I had an amazing sleep last night. I go to bed every night, I put my head on the pillow and I don't think about anything that happened that day. That's the gift I got from this. That's the quiet mind. I do not put my head on the pillow thinking about 50 people I should have told something to. I don't drive in the car having multiple conversations with people that aren't in the car. That's the quiet mind we get by having a relationship and trusting and relying on power greater than myself. And if you look at the stories in the back of the big book and you read every one of them, every single one of those people at some point in those stories, including Bill's story, Dr. Bob's story, Bill Dobson, everybody, they came to a place where they gave their life over to a power greater than themselves. They learned to have guidance and trust. They committed to a process that was going to take them from information to transformation. And I'll end with this one thing. And I just like to end when I do have a talk like this. At the back of the book, in the Vision for You, it says that the book's meant to be suggestive only. We realize we only know a little. that God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. That's the humility these guys had when they wrote the book, that they knew they only knew a little, that things are going to change. God's going to disclose to them more. You know, things that were written in 1939 may not apply 100% today, but the principles of it do. The access to the power will never change. And it doesn't matter how you get it or who or what you consider as your, and they say we don't even want to get into that. All we care about is that you have access to power. It said, ask him in your morning meditation what you could do each day for the man or a woman who is still sick. It's not about praying for me. It's about praying for you. The answers will come if your own house is in order. I beg you to consider this statement. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, is your house in order? And if it's not, find someone that'll help you get it in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and your fellows. I love that line. Admit your faults. It's okay to be wrong. It's actually refreshing to tell somebody you made a mistake. I don't have to sit here today and hide behind my faults. I admit them right away. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Do you want to swim constantly with a backpack full of rocks? We want to be on the surface, not on the bottom here. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road to happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you. Until then, thank you. Thank you so much for letting me share today.